And let's begin by getting you all the details of Rahul Gandhi's grilling yesterday by the Enforcement Directorate in the National Herald scam. No respite as the Congress MP will be grilled again today by the Enforcement Directorate. He was questioned for 10 hours on Monday, and the Congress leader has been summoned again by the ED for his second round of questioning. Rahul has been called in for questioning at 11:30 today. Rahul Gandhi was questioned over a variety of issues related to Associated Journals Limited. The ED also questioned Rahul about his role in the organization that owns the National Herald newspaper. Now, according to ED sources, Rahul was rather evasive during the questioning. The ED still has some questions that remain unanswered from day one, which is why they've chosen to call him in for a second day. The Congress yesterday held this massive show of strength during Rahul's grilling. BJP has called it Congress's drama and has questioned the party, saying why all of this fuss over the grilling of Rahul Gandhi if the Gandhis are innocent.
Day of big Congress stir, from chief ministers to members of parliament and thousands of party workers. The entire Congress machinery paused on Monday to rally behind National Herald case accused Rahul Gandhi, facing ED grilling over alleged money laundering with a massive show of strength and a solidarity march to the Enforcement Watchdog's office. Congress leader and Wayanad MP marched to the Enforcement Directorate's office from the Congress headquarters in Delhi, with hundreds of sloganeering supporters. As Rahul's grilling started by 3 ED officials, sister and Congress General Secretary Priyanka led the protest. Several Congress stalwarts were detained for the march, which didn't have permission and breached prohibitory orders at ED office.
I am in the police van, if you can see. Yes, I have no clue. I was just giving a bite, which is my duty as a national spokesperson, and then I was just picked up and put in this.
राहुल गांधी जी को बुलाया है, इसमें हमें कोई एतराज नहीं है. वो जाएंगे, हम साथ में जाएंगे. साथ में किसी के साथ जाना तो ये तो कोई क्राइम नहीं है. हम क्या कोई गैर कानूनी काम करते हैं क्या? अजीब सी बात है. तानाशाही की राज चलते हैं और क्या?
Congress launched a pan-India protest from Jammu to Patna to Bengaluru, with party workers hitting the streets. Rahul is facing ED probe in the 2012 National Herald money laundering case. The Gandhis are accused of embezzling funds and financial irregularities. With Preeti Chaudhary, Supriya Bharadwaj and Munish Pandey in Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
And as expected, political temperatures are soaring over the Congress Satyagraha, while the BJP deployed Smriti Irani and its full social media weaponry to counter the Congress's show of strength. Interestingly, the TMC also taunted the Grand Old Party and called out its double standards, accusing the Congress top leadership of trembling in fear upon being summoned by a central agency.
The streets of Delhi witnessing a mammoth show of solidarity by Congress workers with Rahul Gandhi. The National Herald case is back in focus and the political war of words reignited by ED's grilling of Rahul. As the Delhi police refused permission to Congress's Satyagraha, the party leadership made it clear nothing could stop them.
मोदी सरकार और उसके पिट्ठू इलेक्शन मैनेजमेंट डिपार्टमेंट ईडी ने सत्य को ललकारा है. सत्य को आवरण की जरूरत नहीं, न उसे दबाया जा सकता.
And true to their word, thousands of Congress workers descended on the streets of the national capital with chants of Rahul Zindabad. Rahul's family also stood firmly with him. His sister Priyanka accompanied him to the ED office, his brother-in-law expressing solidarity.
जब भी कोई इलेक्शन होता है, जब भी कोई उद्योगपति कुछ भी अच्छा कर रहा है कि अगर हम बीजेपी के हित में नहीं बोलेंगे तो एजेंसी का इस्तेमाल किया जाएगा, बेबुनियाद इल्जाम लगाए जाएंगे, उनको उनके परिवार को परेशान किया जाएगा.
The BJP didn't hold back India attacks either, calling this not a satyagrah but a scamagrah.
Today, everyone can see that there is lot of dirt of corruption on the hand of the Congress party, and therefore to hide this corruption that has taken place, they are now indulging in confrontation instead of cooperation.
Rahul's Amethi rival Smriti Irani also jumped into the fray, accusing Congress of pressuring central agencies.
Leaders and workers of the Congress party have descended onto the streets of the national capital to pressurize investigating agencies. Never before has such a blatant attempt been made by one political family to hold investigative agencies to ransom.
The political showdown peaked as Smriti Irani even dragged in Priyanka's name for the first time in the National Herald scam.
रोटेक्स मर्चेंडाइज प्राइवेट लिमिटेड जो कैश के बदले चेक देती है, जो कांग्रेस के कार्यकर्ता आज दिल्ली में एकत्रित हुए हैं, वो राहुल गांधी जी से पूछिए कि गांधी खानदान का संबंध डोटेक्स मर्चेंडाइज प्राइवेट लिमिटेड से क्या है.
Interestingly, it wasn't just the BJP that was firing salvos at the Congress, but the TMC too, calling out the grand old party for double standards.
This is the basic policy of Congress, that they play double standard game. When our people were being called, not a single Congress leader came out with a statement.
With Supriya Bharadwaj, Preeti Chaudhary and Munish Pandey, Bureau Report, India Today.
Meanwhile, the Kannada versus Hindi language war has resurfaced in Karnataka. In Karwar, residents were left fuming after signboards were put up with both Hindi and Kannada signage. A memorandum has been submitted against the use of Hindi in these boards for localities. Back in 2017, this issue had become a big national talking point as metro signboards bearing Hindi signage were plastered off or removed in the city of Bengaluru. The district has standing orders that only Kannada should be used in these boards. So an explanation has now been demanded from the municipal council on why there is Kannada as well as Hindi in these boards in Karwar. This isn't the first time that this issue has come up. Recently, you had Kannada superstar Kicha Sudeep's row with Ajay Devgan over Hindi. Karnataka Chief Minister Baswaraj Bommai had earlier also said that regional languages must be respected.
ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿ ಬಳಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಹೌದು. ಬೇರೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಬಳಸಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ತಗೋಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ನಗರಸಭೆಗೂ ನಾನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಯಾವ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅವರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರುವುದು ಕನ್ನಡ ಬಳಸಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಬಳಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಇತ್ತು, ಕನ್ನಡ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಹಿಂದಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕೊಂಕಣಿಗೆ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲದ ಕಾರಣ ಕೊಂಕಣಿಯನ್ನು ಹಿಂದಿ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀತಾ ಇರೋದಾಗಿ CMCಯಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಓರಲಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಲಿಖಿತವಾಗಿ ಯಾವ ಗೈಡ್ಲೈನ್ಸು ಯಾವ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ.
To what's happening in Bengal, again focusing on the fallout of a former spokesperson of the BJP, Nupur Sharma's comments. We've been seeing protests in parts of Bengal over this as well. More than 200 people have been arrested. 42 cases have been lodged in connection with the violence in West Bengal.
Arson, rail blockades, shops vandalized, Bengal became a battlefield on Friday over suspended BJP leader Nupur Sharma's comments on the Prophet. 3 days later, tension simmers. Internet in the areas worst hit by the violence remains suspended and prohibitory orders remain in place.
The train was halted at this juncture, and when the railway properties, particularly a changing machine of a motor system, which is a heavyweight metal body usually used by railway authority, was used to stop that particular train, and stones were pelted.
Despite the clampdown, sporadic protests continue. Train services were hit Monday morning after protesters blocked railway tracks.
Preventive area se ebar jekhane jekhane amra khobor pacchi spontaneously without any leadership kothao ke organize korche kono rally. Once we come to know of it, amra okhane immediately we are trying to identify those persons and take them into preventive custody.
So far, more than 200 people have been arrested in a crackdown by the Mamata Banerjee government. Meanwhile, Nupur Sharma has been summoned on June the 20th by the Kolkata police for questioning in a case filed against her in the state. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee pinned the blame on the BJP for the violent clashes in the state, saying its workers had instigated the riots.
के साथ पूरा टीएमसी का मिला भगत है। जो लोग गरीब आदमी है, वो कुछ लोग को टीएमसी थाना में दे दिया। ये आंकड़ा को थोड़ा लंबा लिस्ट बना लीजिए। ये पूरा के पूरा 200 सप्लाई बाय दी लोकल टीएमसी लीडर्स। ये पुलिस का साथ मिला भगत है।
The BJP, on the other hand, says the Mamata government had allowed protesters to run riot.
10,000 लोग आया था यहाँ पर पत्थर लेके आया था। यहाँ पर टोटल घर बिल्डिंग पर हमको हमला किया था।
हंगामा होते ही फिर वो हमला कर दिया। हमला करके आसपास का जो घर है उसका शीशा तोड़ दिया।
Politics apart, the violence in Bengal is yet to abate. The ugly side of protests, torched police vehicles, houses set on fire, damage to public property, is there for everyone to see. Bengal is yet again sitting on a tinderbox. With Ritik Mondal in Murshidabad, West Bengal, Bureau Report, India Today.
Yogi Adityanath's bulldozer Raj continues, this time razing down houses belonging to the accused in the recent Uttar Pradesh riots over Nupur Sharma's remarks on the Prophet. This has sparked a political slugfest and raised questions on whether Yogi's method is constitutional.
A day after the house of Javed Mohammed, who allegedly mobilized protests against the Prophet remark, was demolished, a group of advocates have moved the Allahabad High Court for relief. On Sunday, the bulldozers had unleashed the iron hand on alleged illegal properties linked to suspects involved in the violent protests in Prayagraj. Javed's family was served a notice just the day before. His daughter, Afreen Fatima, a JNU and AMU alumna who had earlier taken part in the anti-CAA protest, is also under police scanner. Fatima has called the demolition a witch hunt against her family.
This is not just about my house and my family. It's happening to a lot of houses in Allahabad, a lot of Muslim houses in Allahabad, a lot of Muslim activists such as my father are being harassed, are being intimidated.
Police claim Javed's house was illegal. They allegedly recovered 2 illegal arms and several cartridges during the demolition.
उपलब्ध साक्ष्यों, वीडियो और फोटोग्राफ्स के आधार पर ही कार्रवाई करनी है। किसी भी हालत में किसी निर्दोष के विरुद्ध कार्रवाई न हो, लेकिन कोई भी दंगाई बचने न पाए, इस सिद्धांत पे हम लोग कार्य कर रहे हैं।
The Yogi Adityanath government's bulldozer Raj has left Prayagraj residents shaken. Not just the accused houses, even shops located in the area where protests took place are facing action.
हम लोग एक एहतियातन इसलिए हटा दे रहे हैं कि भाई बिल्डोजर आता है तो कुछ मानिए टीम थोड़ी बाहर है, वो हो सकता है खींचे उचे तो उसमें टूटने का भी डर सब माहौल है।
कहीं भी हम किराए का मिलेगा, कहीं तो रखेंगे सामान, कुछ हमें पता नहीं। हमें भैया हम लोगों को कुछ नहीं है पता, हम लोगों को कुछ नहीं पता, हम लोग पागल हैं भाई।
Similar crackdowns were seen in Kanpur and Saharanpur on the weekend. Chief Minister Adityanath has warned of stern action against those who resort to violence, but the bulldozer Raj pushed by him is being questioned by the opposition.
योगी आदित्यनाथ जी ने भी स्पष्ट कहा कि एक भी निर्दोष को सजा नहीं मिलनी चाहिए और एक भी दोषी बचना नहीं चाहिए। तो जो लोग दंगे करने को तैयार हैं, जो लोग निर्दोषों को मारने के लिए आके बढ़ाते हैं, बम फेंकते हैं, तो उनके ऊपर सजा तो होनी चाहिए। ये बुलडोजर चलता रहेगा।
जजेस का रोल वो उसको कब्जा करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। अगर बुलडोजर की राजनीति भाजपा करते रहेगी, चाहे वो खरगोन सेंधवा में हो या गुजरात में हो या फिर उत्तर प्रदेश में हो, तो फिर अदालत की क्या जरूरत है? अदालत को ताला डाल दीजिए, जजेस को कहिए घर में बैठ जाएं। पुलिस की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि मुख्यमंत्री तय करेगा कि कौन मुल्जिम है और वो सजा दे देगा।
While the BJP rode the bulldozer to election victory in UP, prompting other states also to take up the Yogi model, questions are now being raised over the constitutionality of the method. Bureau Report, India Today.
Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Maharashtra today. The Prime Minister will kickstart his day tour from Pune by inaugurating the temple of Siddhanth Kapoor Maharaj. Later, he will visit the Raj Bhavan in Mumbai to unveil India's first underground museum at the Maharashtra Raj Bhavan. Prime Minister Modi will also inaugurate Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari's new residence, a new Raj Bhavan in Mumbai. To mark Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, the Governor, Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray and top officials will also take part in the ceremony. All eyes, of course, will be on the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, as earlier the Maharashtra Chief Minister had skipped the function in which the Prime Minister was conferred with the Lata Mangeshkar Award. Well, all eyes are on the presidential elections. Preparations have kicked off for the July polls. Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is trying to get together a strong opposition against the central government, against the BJP, with invitations being sent now to all major opposition parties.
The race for Raisina Hill is heating up. All eyes are now on who will be India's next president.
Poll for the election will be taken in Parliament House and in the premises of the state legislative assemblies.
With the presidential election just around the corner, the opposition is trying to field a joint candidate. TMC Supremo Mamata Banerjee is in the national capital to front a strong opposition against the centre. The Bengal Chief Minister has extended an invite to all major parties. The NCP, Aam Aadmi Party and other opposition parties are expected to participate in this brainstorming session. While the opposition brainstorms, the BJP will hold its own consultations with political parties to arrive at a consensus candidate. The BJP-led NDA has 48.9% votes in the Electoral College. This means the BJP will have to ensure the support of key regional players like the YSRCP, BJD and TRS to ensure its candidates win. The presidential polls will be a litmus test for opposition unity, with Mamata taking the lead to finalize an opposition candidate instead of waiting for the Congress. A consensus could be tough. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's begin with news coming in from the valley of another successful operation by our forces. This time, Pakistani terrorists who were planning to target the Amarnath Yatra have been neutralized. These Pakistan-based handlers had sent 2 terrorists. They belong to the Lashkar-e-Taiba. There was one local terrorist as well who had been in Pakistan for the last many years undergoing training. They were all sent into India with clear intention to attack Amarnath Yatra pilgrims. This was the same group of terrorists who had escaped earlier when locked in an encounter with our forces in Sopore. But now they've been neutralized by our forces. There's been a high alert in the valley, particularly because there has been a spate of targeted killings of minorities, non-locals as well, which is why the central government also has taken note of the fact that there could be perhaps an attack also on Amarnath Yatra pilgrims. So this comes as a big development. Ashraf Wani is joining us with more details on this. Ashraf, these three terrorists reportedly were planning to attack Amarnath Yatra pilgrims.
Absolutely, Archita. This is what the police said earlier. As you said, this group was cornered off in the Sopore area of Baramulla district last week. One of the militants was Pakistani. He was killed there. 3 others managed from that encounter spot to escape. And finally today, yesterday late evening, this group was cornered off once again by the security forces joint team of police and the army, in which 3 these Lashkar-e-Taiba militants had been killed by the security forces. Jammu and Kashmir Police Inspector General said that all the 3 killed have been identified to are Pakistanis, and one is the local who belongs from the Pahalgam area of Anantnag district, and that is why they believe that this group was planning an attack on the Amarnath Yatra, which is scheduled from 30th of June, and that is why this local Lashkar-e-Taiba operative was with them. And this group recently infiltrated, in fact, in the first week of May via Gurez. Since then, the security forces from different agencies were tracking them. And finally, one of them was killed in Sopore last week, and other 3 in this encounter, which ended yesterday late evening in the Bemina area of Srinagar.
Okay. We've been seeing a number of such targeted killings in the valley, as security forces since then have been on alert, particularly with regards to the Amarnath Yatra and specific intel about attacks on these pilgrims. Thanks, Ashraf, for the moment for joining us. And here's our top story this Tuesday morning. Rahul Gandhi all set to appear for the second straight day before the Enforcement Directorate for questioning in the National Herald case. And the Congress too is refusing to back down. Yesterday they held this massive satyagraha. Today as well they're going to be gathering in large numbers. Rahul Gandhi was questioned for 10 hours yesterday, and today again he's been summoned for a second round of questioning. He's expected to appear before the ED at about 11:30 this morning. Rahul was questioned over a variety of issues related to Associated Journals Limited. The ED particularly questioned Rahul about his role in the organization that owns the National Herald newspaper. Now, what we're hearing from ED sources is that Rahul Gandhi was rather evasive during questioning, which is why also they've decided to call him in for interrogation today. The Congress had held that massive show of strength during Rahul's grilling yesterday. Today as well, Congress leaders will be gathering at the Congress headquarters. The BJP has referred to all of this as drama, asking why there's so much fuss if the Gandhis have nothing to hide.
Day of big Congress talk, from chief ministers to members of parliament and thousands of party workers. The entire Congress machinery paused on Monday to rally behind National Herald case accused Rahul Gandhi, facing ED grilling over alleged money laundering with a massive show of strength and a solidarity march to the Enforcement Watchdog's office. Congress leader and Wayanad MP marched to the Enforcement Directorate's office from the Congress headquarters in Delhi, with hundreds of sloganeering supporters. As Rahul's grilling started by 3 ED officials, sister and Congress General Secretary Priyanka led the protest. Several Congress stalwarts were detained for the march which didn't have permission and breached prohibitory orders at ED office.
I am in the police van, if you can see. Yes, I have no clue. I was just giving a bite, which is my duty as a national spokesperson, and I was just picked up and put in this.
राहुल गांधी जी को बुलाया है, इसमें हमें कोई एतराज नहीं है. वो जाएंगे, हम साथ में जाएंगे. साथ में किसी के साथ जाना तो ये तो कोई क्राइम नहीं है. हम क्या कोई गैर कानूनी काम करते हैं क्या? अजीब सी बात है. तानाशाही की राज चलते हैं और क्या.
Congress launched a pan-India protest from Jammu to Patna to Bengaluru, with party workers hitting the streets. Rahul is facing ED probe in the 2012 National Herald money laundering case. The Gandhis are accused of embezzling funds and financial irregularities. With Preeti Chaudhary, Supriya Bharadwaj and Munish Pandey in Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
So at about 11 this morning, Rahul Gandhi is expected to appear before the ED once again. Let's tell you what's happening on the ground. Kamaljeet Sandhu is joining us live from the AICC headquarters in Delhi. We've also got Shreya Chatterjee joining us this morning live from the Enforcement Directorate office. Kamaljeet, I'd like to begin with you. Good morning. Early this morning, already the Congress has made it very clear that their leaders, their workers will be gathering pretty much again at the Congress headquarters. So repeat of what happened yesterday expected today as well.
Well, the Congress may have announced that this could be a repeat of what has happened yesterday, but things appear much calmer today. We are at the AICC office, and there you can see there's hardly any crowd. We saw massive crowds really turn up yesterday. Look at the body language of the policemen out here. The Delhi police deployed in heavy numbers, but the body language itself shows they have done the preparations. The barricades have come up all along Janpath Road now. So if we can try and show you at a distance, the barricades are still standing. But what is significant is that at this point of time, the preparations are in place. But we don't see the crowds that we saw yesterday. Now, Randeep Surjewala is expected to address a press conference in a short while from now, around 9 o'clock. But before that, it does seem that the Congress leaders will once again gather here at the AICC. We do not know whether they're going to really march like yesterday, because remember, there were several detentions of leaders. They accused and alleged that Delhi police had actually manhandled them. Some of the leaders had their clothes torn. So they were saying this is obviously simply not done. But today again is day 2 of questioning of Rahul Gandhi. And before that, Congress is still strategizing as what it needs to do. Meanwhile, upping the ante against the Modi government. So far, it's ED as well as Rahul Gandhi. But meanwhile, political storm already brewing.
That's right. So today as well, Congress leaders are expected to gather where Kamaljeet is, at the Congress headquarters. Let's focus on Rahul Gandhi's grilling in this particular case. Shreya Chatterjee is joining us live from the Enforcement Directorate office. Shreya, Rahul expected there by about 11:30 today for round 2 of questioning. Just round up for our viewers what played out yesterday, because he was questioned for over 10 hours and yet summoned today as well.
Well, absolutely. So, Akshata, you know, it was questioning that was for over 10 hours. However, in the interim period, he was actually questioned for around 8 and 8.5 hours. It's for the 2 hours. He was looking into the questions, whether there was any mistake before finalizing. And obviously, the reason he's been summoned today is because the Enforcement Directorate officers have found certain answers that have been given by Rahul Gandhi as evasive and inconclusive. That's the reason he's been called again. There are some questions that were also left out yesterday, is why Rahul Gandhi is appearing today. Yesterday, we saw that he was questioned in 2 halves. The questions revolved around his role in AJL and Young India Private Limited. He was a board of director in Young India Private Limited. He holds a share of 38% total. He and his mother holds 76% share in Young India Private Limited. The entire questioning focused on that. We also do understand that the ED officers tried to ask Rahul Gandhi about the fact that why did he hide his role as a director in the company, in that IT department tax sheet that he filed in 2011 to 2012. So these are the questions that revolved around so far as Rahul Gandhi's summon was concerned. Today becomes extremely important because we have to see that whether or not it will again be a long day for Rahul Gandhi, provided unless and until the agency feels that the answers are conclusive, probably it will again be a long day for Rahul Gandhi today.
That's right. Shreya, thank you for getting us that update from the Enforcement Directorate office. Thanks to Kamaljeet also for getting us that live report from the Congress headquarters. Let's focus on the political fallout of what played out yesterday, of Rahul Gandhi being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate and the Congress holding that massive march, which they referred to as a satyagraha. The BJP was quick to mock it. The BJP, in fact, fielding Union Minister Smriti Irani to take on the Congress. She referred to this whole protest march as nothing but tamasha, saying this is an attempt by the Grand Old Party to pressurize the Enforcement Directorate. Interestingly, it wasn't just the BJP that questioned the Congress, but even the Trinamool Congress.
The streets of Delhi witnessing a mammoth show of solidarity by Congress workers with Rahul Gandhi. The National Herald case is back in focus and the political war of words reignited by ED's grilling of Rahul. As the Delhi police refused permission to Congress's satyagraha, the party leadership made it clear nothing could stop them.
मोदी सरकार और उसके पिट्ठू इलेक्शन मैनेजमेंट डिपार्टमेंट ईडी ने सत्य को ललकारा है। सत्य को आवरण की जरूरत नहीं, न उसे दबाया जा सकता।
And true to their word, thousands of Congress workers descended on the streets of the national capital with chants of Rahul Zindabad. Rahul's family also stood firmly with him. His sister Priyanka accompanied him to the ED office, his brother-in-law expressing solidarity.
जब भी कोई इलेक्शन होता है, जब भी कोई उद्योगपति कुछ भी अच्छा कर रहा है कि अगर हम बीजेपी के हित में नहीं बोलेंगे तो एजेंसी का इस्तेमाल किया जाएगा, बेबुनियाद इल्जाम लगाए जाएंगे, उनके परिवार को परेशान किया जाएगा।
The BJP didn't hold back in their attacks either, calling this not a satyagraha but a scamagraha.
Today, everyone can see that there is lot of dirt of corruption on the hand of the Congress party, and therefore to hide this corruption that has taken place, they are now indulging in confrontation instead of cooperation.
Rahul's Amethi rival Smriti Irani also jumped into the fray, accusing Congress of pressuring central agencies.
Leaders and workers of the Congress party have descended onto the streets of the national capital to pressurize investigating agencies. Never before has such a blatant attempt been made by one political family to hold investigative agencies to ransom.
The political showdown peaked as Smriti Irani even dragged in Priyanka's name for the first time in the National Herald scam.
Rotex Merchandise Private Limited, जो कैश के बदले चेक देती है, जो कांग्रेस के कार्यकर्ता आज दिल्ली में एकत्रित हुए हैं, वो राहुल गांधी जी से पूछिए कि गांधी खानदान का संबंध डोटेक्स मर्चेंडाइज प्राइवेट लिमिटेड से क्या है?
Interestingly, it wasn't just the BJP that was firing salvos at the Congress, but the TMC too, calling out the Grand Old Party for double standards.
This is the basic policy of Congress, that they play double standard game. When our people were being called, not a single Congress leader came out with a statement.
With Supriya Bharadwaj, Preeti Chaudhary and Munish Pandey, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, as we speak, Congress leaders are already gathering at the Congress headquarters for another day of protest. But what played out yesterday is the Congress leadership alleging that they were manhandled by the Delhi police. Now, the Congress has alleged that senior leader, former Union Minister P. Chidambaram, was also targeted, was manhandled by these cops, and that he suffered a hairline fracture because of the same. As far as the Delhi police is concerned, they have maintained that if there are any allegations of manhandling during detention, that will be looked into and appropriate action will be taken. But the Congress saying here that P. Chidambaram was in fact manhandled by cops and that he suffered a hairline fracture. This is something that P. Chidambaram also has in fact tweeted about. He's confirmed while taking to social media that he did in fact visit a doctor. He said that the doctors have said that if there is a hairline crack, it will heal by itself in about 10 days. I am fine and I will go about my work tomorrow. This is what senior Congress leader P. Chidambaram has also said. But this is another showdown that's brewing. The Delhi police maintaining that if there was any sort of assault, manhandling that took place while leaders were being detained yesterday, it will be looked into.
नमस्कार साथियों, दिल्ली पुलिस का अत्याचार मोदी सरकार की बर्बरता यहीं नहीं रुकी। श्री केसी वेणुगोपाल पर संगठन महासचिव पर जानलेवा हमला बोला गया। दिल्ली के प्रभारी श्री शक्ति सिंह गोहिल को लाठियों से बर्बरता से मारा गया। और दिल्ली पुलिस की मोदी सरकार के बदले की कार्रवाई का आलम देखिए। देश के पूर्व गृह मंत्री, देश के पूर्व वित्त मंत्री श्री पी चिदम्बरम जी की पसली तोड़ दी गई, उन्हें धक्के मारे गए, उनका चश्मा अखिल भारतीय कांग्रेस कमेटी के कार्यालय के बाहर जमीन पर फेंक दिया गया। क्या मोदी सरकार को ये मालूम नहीं कि देश के गृह मंत्री से कैसा व्यवहार होगा? हमारे सांसद श्री प्रमोद तिवारी को सड़क पर फेंककर मारा गया, उनका सर जमीन पर लगा और उनकी पसली में फ्रैक्चर हो गया। चिदम्बरम जी, प्रमोद तिवारी जी को हेयरलाइन फ्रैक्चर्स हैं उनकी पसलियों में। क्या शांति प्रिय तरीके से श्री राहुल गांधी जी के साथ चलकर जाना पाप हो गया है?
And this morning, let's get you a news break from Bengaluru on a story that India Today got you exclusive details on yesterday, that high-profile drug bust by the Bengaluru police in the heart of the city in MG Road, which also led to Shraddha Kapoor's elder brother Siddhanth Kapoor being arrested. The update that's coming in that case is that Shraddha Kapoor's brother has been released on bail. Along with him, 4 others who were also taken into custody were released on bail. Remember that Shraddha's brother Siddhanth Kapoor was a DJ at that suspected rave party. He was tested. It was found that he had in fact consumed drugs as well. His samples are tested positive for drugs, and that's why he was also formally taken into custody. He's now been released on bail with, of course, a slew of conditions. Nagarjun Dwarkanath is joining us with more details on this. Nagarjun, good morning. What are the conditions that have been set for, in fact, Siddhanth Kapoor to be granted bail in this case?
Siddhanth Kapoor has been granted bail along with 5 others who were arrested in the drug case, which was happened in Bengaluru in a 5-star hotel yesterday. His phone has been confiscated and a bond has been taken, and he's been told to appear before the Alsur police in Bangalore city whenever the notice has been issued. And today also he's been given notice to appear before them at 11 o'clock to cooperate with the investigation. So Siddhanth will remain in Bangalore today at 11. He will appear before the police to cooperate and record his statements and for further investigation, and to talk about CCTV footage that the police have gathered from the hotel and to collaborate the evidences. So as he was accused of consuming drugs, they want to question him as to did he get it in the hotel or outside, did someone supply it to him, or it's a bigger network. These are the questions that the police will be looking at, and today at 11 o'clock he's been told to appear before them.
Okay, Nagarjun, thank you for joining us with that update. And And let's get you details of exactly what played out in Bengaluru that led to, in fact, Shraddha Kapoor's brother being taken into custody. Bollywood finds itself embroiled in another drug scandal, this time in Bengaluru. Siddhanth Kapoor, Shraddha's elder brother, Shakti Kapoor's son, who was DJing at a suspected rave party, was taken into custody and he tested positive for consuming drugs. All the details in our next report.
23 days to go before Siddhanth Kapoor turned 38. He was detained by the police in a drug party bust case in Bengaluru. His family unaware and baffled.
I was the first thing in the morning, recommended today only I came to know about this. I don't have any idea, I don't know anything about it because I had a very late night, and when I got up at 9 o'clock, the news was coming that he's been detained. So, मुझे कुछ पता ही नहीं है कि क्या है क्या नहीं. So the whole family is now trying to get in touch, and nobody is picking up the phone there. So I don't know what is happening.
Son of veteran actor Shakti Kapoor, brother of blockbuster actress Shraddha Kapoor, Siddhanth in his late 30s is still an actor waiting for big success. On the night of 12th June, he was at a party in a hotel in Bengaluru's MG Road when the cops raided it and he was detained along with others. Siddhanth was DJing at the party and police claim to have found 2 packets of drugs lying near a dustbin closer to him.
He was acting as a DJ here. He was playing the music here, and yes, he also has been secured as in his medical test he has put positive for certain drugs.
Siddhanth's sample was amongst the 5 that turned out to be positive. Police is yet to confirm whether drugs were consumed at the party or were they consumed before entry. But for the time being, Shraddha Kapoor's brother and Shakti Kapoor's son, Siddhanth, will remain in police custody for further investigation. With Karthik in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
And let's get you the latest update coming in on the investigation into the murder of singer Sidhu Moosewala. Remember, the gangster Lawrence Bishnoi has been confirmed to be the mastermind. The police custody of the gangster comes to an end today, and Delhi cops are set to seek extension of his custody, so he's going to be produced in court today. Bishnoi has maintained that he was, yes, planning to kill singer Moosewala, but now maintains that he had no phone in jail and has no clue about who killed Moosewala. The confession that Bishnoi is sticking to now is that, yes, I wanted to kill him, but this wasn't me. I had no phone in jail, I had no way to communicate my intentions, and I don't know who killed Moosewala. Shreya Chatterjee is joining us with more details on this. So Shreya, the Delhi police, we understand, is going to be seeking an extension of Bishnoi's custody because his statement, his interrogation in the Moosewala murder probe is going to be extremely crucial, because right now he says, I have no role in this. I had the intention of killing Moosewala, but I couldn't execute this because I didn't have a phone.
Well, yes, Akshita, in all likelihood, we will be seeing the Delhi Police's special cell seek an extension of Lawrence Bishnoi because of the fact of his alleged involvement in the murder of Sidhu Moosewala. Earlier we saw the Delhi Police's special cell go on record stating that it is Lawrence Bishnoi, in fact, who's the mastermind behind the killing of Sidhu Moosewala. Now, right now, Lawrence Bishnoi, so far as the questionings are concerned, have stated that he did want Sidhu Moosewala to be murdered, but because of the fact that for the last 6 months he had no phone connectivity, he's not aware about who are the killers and how was the entire thing plotted. However, the Delhi Police would want to look into the visitors list that might have met Lawrence Bishnoi in the course of period. So that is something that the Delhi Police will continue to investigate, and reason is why they will actually be seeking for an extension of Lawrence Bishnoi.
Okay, Shreya, thank you for joining us with those details, a story that we will track very closely here on India Today.